All right, good evening, everyone. The public has been duly informed of this meeting in accordance with Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975 by posting at least 48 hours in advance a notice on the bulletin boards in Stevenson and Churchill schools, a notice to the township clerk, and a notice to the Herald News and the Progress. Now, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We're going to begin this evening with the President's report. We just have a couple things. First and foremost, I'd like to say congratulations to the FEF. They planned and orchestrated a wonderful event last night. Their gala fundraiser was a huge success. It was sold out. It was beautifully thought out. It was elegant. We know they raised a great amount of money. And I had a conversation with one of the members today, and I just wanted to let them know how proud the board is to have them and to see how much they've done in such a short period of time, and we really look forward to working with them in the future. We know they're doing great things for the schools and the teachers, and we appreciate them and everything that they've contributed to the students of Fairfield. So thank you and congratulations. Again, it was a huge success. We're proud of all of them. I'd like to address the pavement behind Churchill School. It was brought to our attention after the weekend that there was some disruption in the asphalt that was existing. So not the asphalt project that we recently did at the end of last year. It was the walkway that was in existence that we paved up to. We believe, and when I say we, Wally, myself, John, Ryan, that the walkway just really wasn't built to maintain the car traffic. So it kind of broke up, water got in between it during the winter months, and as it froze, it kind of cracked the asphalt, and we quickly figured out a plan, a very inexpensive plan, and I give a lot of the credit to Wally for that. And we had Structural Stone deliver a couple of loads of QP stone, a quarry process stone, and we reached out for our mayor and our business administrator, who was kind enough to lend us a plate tamping machine, and we were able to fix the problem temporarily for just about under $375. So kudos to Wally and his quick thinking, and a big thank you to our town employees for letting us use their machinery. We did go out to bid for that particular project, but unfortunately both quotes came just over the threshold. So now we're discussing exactly what needs to be done in order to address the problem with a long-term solution, but I think we are okay for the next week or two with the solution that we have. So again, thank you to Wally and John for, and Ryan, who was actually shoveling stone and rock. Very surprising to see, but we greatly appreciate it. And this can go under old business or the president's report, but I know we've talked to you in the past about generating income behind Stevenson School. And I'm happy to report that after working with the Fairfield Recreation Department, we were able to secure one which will be approved tonight, and 2 or 3 other local organizations that are going to be renting. One in particular, Joe, was that your foot? All right, we'll take that call.
That's why I said that.
Yeah. We're happy to report that we have a soccer field going back there, which is it's going to be lined for the first time by recreation. They're going to help us with that. And we have, and what I believe we're approving it tonight, Sticks and Kicks, which is a Fairfield organization, which is going to be renting it 2 days a week. And we are working with 2 or 3 other local softball and baseball organizations, which will be renting the fields as well, which is going to generate some income for us, which is, it's nice. And we've talked about it for a long time, and we're happy to see it come to fruition. So again, Wally and I have been working with the organizations in regards to what to charge them and the insurance and paperwork necessary. So in regards to that, the ball's rolling. Spring is here, and we're very hopeful that we can continue to build on this and generate a yearly source of income, in a space that was already there. It was already existing without, costing the district any money. I have nothing else under my president's report. I would love to turn it over to Mr. Gupta. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Again, thank you to the FEF. I didn't make it to the gala last night, but the amount of money that they provide our district is awesome. It provides our students and our staff with resources that we wouldn't otherwise be able to provide our students. So thank you to them. I know you've heard me mention this before, that we're already deep into the planning process for next school year. That includes budgeting, that includes scheduling. That means it's also the time of the school year when decisions have to be made regarding staffing. You'll see there's 2 of those recommendations on tonight's board agenda. It's obviously my responsibility to ensure the district is run efficiently. It's also my job to make sure that we place staff in positions that will best serve our students. Some staffing changes can be absolutely disheartening, stressful for everyone involved. Everybody's nervous about change and things like that. But yeah, I have to always keep in mind that these decisions that are very, very difficult are always made in the best interest of our students, our staff, and the district as a whole. Sometimes it's indirect. Sometimes you don't even see the connection. But these are decisions that we spend lots and lots of time and discussions on before we get to a final decision. Because we can't discuss things publicly, that often makes it more difficult to parents and students to understand. So the toughest part is that you have to trust me. You have to trust me that I've looked at everything I possibly could, and I've decided that this is what's best for our students. I can tell you that this board does not take any of my recommendations lightly. We've had meetings, we've had phone calls. They ask every single question that you can possibly think of over these decisions because they know how important it is. They want to make sure that I've thought through everything, that I've thought through short-term, long-term scenarios, that this is definitely what's best for the students. And I appreciate that because you guys keep me on my toes and I have to know. And they should. If they're going to say yes and approve something, they need to know that their superintendent went through the process. This won't be the last time on an agenda you see something that has to do with staff. And again, it makes it difficult because any questions that come my way, I have to say we cannot discuss personnel. But I do want to let you know that you can trust and be confident in me that all the things have been thought through. That if any decisions are made, it was absolutely and always the core of the decision is it in the best interest of our students, our staff, and our district as a whole? And that can be very difficult. I understand that and I empathize with that. That being said, and on that somber note, my report's done. I'll take it over to the business administrator. Do you have anything for us?
Something quick.
Sorry, I don't have a better opening act.
Just to expand on my report at the last meeting, I mentioned that we were waiting for the release of the state aid figures and that the maximum reduction would not exceed 3% of the prior year's award. The figures were released, and unfortunately, we did receive a reduction in state aid equivalent to that 3% reduction, the maximum, and that percentage equates to $30,944 reduction in the state aid. Nonetheless, we were able to make the adjustments in the budget and prepare a tentative budget that's on the agenda tonight for submission to the county office for review. So that's where we are with the budget.
Thank you, Wally. Thank you, Ryan. I greatly appreciate it. Before I move on to a committee report that Melinda will deliver, Lauren just walked in. Lauren, before you walked in, I started off with my president's report and thanking the FEF. And now that you're here, I'm just going to say it again. Thank you very much for all that you've done. Your committee was wonderful. You were graceful and elegant in your speech last night. It was very moving. I feel like you spoke from the heart I'm glad you came a couple minutes late because I definitely wanted to take a second and give you the kudos you deserve. It was a beautiful event. I know you guys, raised a boatload of money. We're happy to support you. And I was even happier to hear all the wonderful things that you have going on. In particular, I was very happy to see that, at one point you addressed everyone and we could feel what you were saying was from the heart and you did a phenomenal job. I ran into your husband today at Dunkin' Donuts and I told him what a great job you did. And he kind of smirked because I think he felt the same way. So thank you. It was appropriate that you walked in when you did. We started off with a big thank you and congratulations to you and your entire organization for a wonderful job. Thank you. At this point, we have one committee report, and that's going to be Melinda with the HSA.
Yes, another wonderful organization we have. On May 15th, they're going to be hosting their biggest and annual fundraiser. It's going to be a Tricky Tray Casino Night. They said tickets will be available in 1 or 2 days, and they'll be sharing information soon. Just in case, as a reminder, the HSA helps to support us and gives us things such as field trips for our kids, end-of-year activities, teacher supplies, and assemblies that the kids get to see, and many, many more things. So if you're available on May 15th, hold the date, and more information will be following in the next couple of days.
I know we've talked about this in the past, but, just for a general rule of thumb, and Melinda, you could speak probably a little bit more educated on this than I can because you were on it for several years. But the HSA contributed, somewhere around $100,000 a year to the students, and that's fantastic. And the fundraiser we attended last year that the HSA put on was, again, it was another beautiful event that the HSA ran, and it's really important that you really get that out there and push so it can be as successful as the other events that are going on in town. And it really starts with the teachers and the parents and the residents that really, buy into the district and all these wonderful programs that the HSA has and has to offer. So we're looking forward to go there. I know there'll be board support there as well. And thank you very much, Melinda, for taking your time and going to these meetings. I know sometimes it's difficult with the kids in life, so we appreciate it. With that being said, there's no other committee reports this evening, but I would like to open up the floor to agenda items only. So if anyone has anything in regards to an item on the agenda, please feel free to come up without seeing anyone. Oh, we do? Okay. You're later on, so you took me by surprise on agenda items.
Is it on? On.
Yes.
Allison Miasso, 7 Southampton Drive. So I have 2 questions that are kind of follow-ups to, I guess, Anthony, your report, and then Mr. Gupta's report. So my one question is, and it's probably not dissimilar from things that I've mentioned in other board meetings, I think we're aware that the space behind Churchill has perhaps some area that's a little bit dormant. We know we put in kind of a short-term or a more temporary solution with being able to deal with the kind of impacts from the lack of busing. I think we're all committed now to that busing is unlikely to come back. And so we're gonna have to continue to think about how we continue to make that process as efficient as possible. And so kind of in that regard, and I appreciate we're not on the Buildings and Grounds Committee, but I think the community would be really appreciative if we could hear about maybe some more detail around your short-term and long-term plans. So I heard tonight about the plans to bring in some revenue producing, which I think is amazing. And I think that's a great use of the space. I think with that in mind, some kind of observations as a community member who's back there every day. I think we all find parking at Churchill to be a significant challenge, particularly now that we moved 3rd grade up. There's more staff there. There's not really enough available spaces. Many of us utilize the municipal building or Just Road or other creative solutions when we need to. If we're going to be bringing in more sport-based activities, I think that will even further challenge the parking situation anytime that we have evening events. So I don't know if there's an opportunity to consider that as part of maybe a more midterm, long-term plan. And then equally, the QP solution, which I commend, I think that was amazing how fast you got that rectified, because those of us that kind of drove it over, we knew that was going to be a quick problem. But knowing that we're hitting upon our rainy season and Fairfield is like a sponge, I know you're going out to bid. It's going to be a little more complicated, it sounds like, with having to kind of deal with that. But thoughts around how fast you might get another solution in place?
Sure. So, and all great questions. And obviously, we enjoy having you up here and opening up this dialogue. just for clarification purposes, the field rentals are going to be at Stevenson School, not
Okay.
Churchill.
Oh, I misheard that then.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that shouldn't impact the parking. So long-term solution is basically mirror what we've done on the opposite side. So when we performed this project last year, because the police department told us we really couldn't have those cars on Hollywood Avenue, we created I believe it's 320 feet of a straight line, and then it's 225 feet of a curved circle. And Wally, you'll have to jump in at this point, but in order for us to go out and do a project, it has to be below a certain threshold before it has to go to a public bid. So we were very fortunate that both the projects we've done at Stevenson and Churchill fell underneath that threshold. Now, our long-term solution, because, to touch on a little bit of what Ryan said in the same regards to buildings and grounds, believe me, we are out there often. I'm at Churchill more than I want to be, trying to figure things out and trying to figure out a way to do it in the cheapest way possible, right? It's a pretty simple solution. It's just recreate the roadway that's there, but create it in a way that's meant for vehicle traffic. So the pathway coming in was dug down approximately 7 inches. There was 4 inches of 3/4 QP stone put down, which was compacted, and then 3 inches of I-5 asphalt, which is basically a commercial grade roadway asphalt meant for cars and trucks and so on and so forth. So we did think about doing the entire project in its entirety, but we realized we would be over the bid threshold. So we basically did what we needed to do in a 2 or 3 week time span to get the cars off of Hollywood and kind of fix the problem at hand, because, drop off is still, very well, and I think pickups well as well. It might not be to the best that everyone thinks it could be, but we've solved the problem in getting the cars off the street. We solved the problem of the backup on Hollywood, approaching the Krausers and Birch Tree Drive. So basically, the walkway that's there now has probably been there for close to 25 years, and it's a walkway.
The blacktop too is,
Well, that's when
same.
when I say the walkway is the blacktop, because it really wasn't meant for a roadway. It was meant for a walkway for the kids to come out the back of the school and then walk, to left or right. So we are basically going to do the same thing we did there. We're going to recreate that walkway as a roadway. We will excavate down 7 inches. We'll do the same exact thing that we did before with 4 inches of stone, 3 inches of asphalt. And then in addition, we're thinking about putting a couple walkways connecting the back walkway to the front next to the trailers, and then recreating the walkway that's there now that's kind of falling apart. Unfortunately, the bids came in literally several $100s over that threshold. So unfortunately, what would have been approved tonight and been addressed in the next 10 or 15 days now might take 3 or 4 weeks. So I happened to drop off on a Monday. I saw Mr. Gupta. I said, hey, we have a problem back there. He's like, hey, another parent told me that. We reconvened 2 hours later. We looked at the problem. We said, let's monitor it. 2 days later, it just broke apart. And it was that third day that
it was the rain.
it was the rain. Well, it's
Heavy rain that we had.
It's the rain when it freezes. So when it rains and then freezes at night, the ice kind of just takes the asphalt and rips it apart. It escalated pretty quickly. And that's when Wally and I met there, maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, and we're like, okay, let's just get stone. Let's call the town. The town was doing a hot patch program, but unfortunately, it was too big of an area for them to address with hot patch.
No, yeah,
And
that
I
whole
think
space
for
was-
those of you that see the hot patch work around town, you'll see that sometimes when it's not tamped, it's loose and it kind of flies all over the place. So the last thing we want are our students walking back there, kicking it. It's all over their clothes, their shoes, their backpacks. So the stone was a quick, inexpensive way to address the issue, and it's still doing pretty well, because
Holding up pretty
No,
well.
the QP's doing great.
yeah, I dropped off today. So we were expecting to have this addressed by March 31st, knowing that the stone would hold up. Now we just have to make sure that if the stone needs to be raked and then retamped, we do that just to keep an even surface. And if we do that, I think, we should have this rectified within the next 30 days. Unfortunately, I'd like to report that there's going to be a different system for the Churchill pickup and drop off. And we do have some ideas about creating a roadway in front of the school. And we're going to be working with the police department to look into a safe street grant that's out there to kind of collaborate with, between the grant and some of our cap reserve, or it was going to be addressed with a referendum, and unfortunately, that didn't pass, so we have to move past that. And there is a way to create a little less traffic by creating 2 lanes in front of the school. We would have to remove some trees, but the truth of the matter is, it's not in the cap reserve right now. So if we could work with the police department, and they said they would assist in helping us write that grant, because they can justify getting the cars off the street, away from the fire department, away from the emergency exits, that we can get something. So I don't know what a project like that would cost, but if we can get half of it subsidized, obviously, then it would be advantageous to say, hey, let's make this a priority. So, that's something a little bit more long-term, but for the remainder of this year, I foresee the situation with the pickup and drop off being pretty much what it is right now. And in the morning, I drop off every morning, and there's never a backup, usually in and out in 2 or 3 minutes. I understand pickup's a little longer. But, we're definitely working and looking on a daily basis on what we can do at both Stevenson and Churchill to make it a more pleasurable experience.
Yeah, so I think that was extremely helpful, if I heard it correctly.
Yeah.
And
QP is
it's not a complicated bid specification, so it's not like, we're putting in air conditioning units, so it should be a
Sure.
pretty quick thing to turn around. The only problem is that a majority of the asphalt plants aren't open yet, so that's another delay. So if we have to go to one that's not open and it's further away, the cost is astronomical. So we're trying to maintain what we have right now and then try to get everything going as soon as they open up.
So I think what I'm hearing is current and immediate solution is the QP, which is working, and I agree and acknowledge it's working.
Yeah.
If there's minimal disruption, you might re-rake and do things to kind of continue to temporary patch. Hopefully the bid in the next month, 3 or 4 weeks, depending on how that process sorts out, keeps kind of the current situation, and then the longer term situation would be if we get grants, if we could find kind of a bigger or better solution.
We could patch that area now. It wouldn't be fiscally responsible, because if you take a look at that, and I think that straight stretch is just approximately 324 feet, right? If we patch the 30-foot area, if you walk 10 more feet, the corners are,
Well, so
they're-
that's actually, and again, trust me, this is not my personal forte, but we did recently pave our driveway, so some of these terms resonate.
yeah.
But as I was like, at least I'm following the process, but that was my bigger concern, is that as we hit rainy season, more of that's gonna start to erode. And I know you've moved the cones occasionally to kind of
Yeah.
keep us off the corners,
The-
but it's gonna all start to
The
kind of
good
crumble.
news is the spider cracking that you see now, just past where the more damaged area sits, can be repaired as well with QP. So we are trying to put a little bit into this, knowing that within 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to spend, anywhere between, $40,000 and $50,000 on this. Yeah, so it's, we could patch it and probably get it done for $10,000 or $12,000, but you're literally, it would only to be
Piecing or
ripped up
two.
in a month anyway. So we feel like this is a very inexpensive way. We're making sure we're being very conscious of the cars that drive back there. A lot of the parents in this town have cars that sit a little lower. So we're mindful of, if we have to re-rake, so that there's not a lot of dips or potholes that we are. So we're really looking at every avenue, but it's all based on finance and what's, fiscally responsible for the district. And like I said, to repair that patch in the condition that it was for under $400, I feel, administration did a pretty good job. So, kudos to them.
No, I fully agree. And this one's going to probably slightly push me maybe off of the official agenda topics, but in that same context, as we approach rainy season, I think the town has done really well. The school, the staff, everyone has done really well with adapting to the new pickup and drop-off procedures. But in those really heavy rain days, I think there's a lot of concern about the current dismissal process at Stevenson. So I know there was potential revision to that as we kind of approach that if weather requires it. So I just would request if that's still being considered, and then if and when it's appropriate to maybe share that, because there is a lot of sentiment in the community where there's concerns around how that looks on those really heavy rainy days.
So, I mean, that's more of an administrative thing, but I've said it numerous occasions up here, at the dais. The first of everything's going to be difficult. We really haven't had a pickup with extreme downpours.
We've been lucky.
Very fortunate, right? Knock on wood. But it's going to happen.
It's going to happen.
And I want to be as forthcoming as possible by saying, get your umbrellas, because that's what's going to be needed. The landscape of Churchill School is the landscape of Churchill School.
No, so Churchill, this is my personal opinion. I think Churchill, the bigger kids can kind of cope. It's concerns with Stevenson, the little guys.
Yeah, so I think Wally is going to,
And I can jump in on this one.
Okay.
But there really isn't
And it's
a
not
way
an
of
on the
getting
spot
around.
question.
No.
Yeah.
Whipping out the umbrellas. Look, we had a plan in place to keep kids in the gym, to keep kids in the back, have parents come in. That's a security issue. We cannot have any, families, members coming in to pick up their kids. So, and what you've seen in other districts that have this situation where there is no busing, parents have to get out of the cars with their umbrella, come grab their child and go. The expenses to put awnings and covered walkways is unbelievable. Like I thought, oh, we'll just make a covered walkway and that way you guys can come up and we'll keep the kids out in front. And then you start talking about six figures like this, and that's the cheap way to do it. So there really isn't a way of getting around on those days, just having the parents come all the way up to retrieve their kids. I live in West Caldwell. I've seen them do it at Wilson where they park their car and they walk. We just have a lot of restrictions in place at Stevenson.
Yeah.
Other school districts have an entrance coming in and a different exit going out. So there's some leeway and you can wait and you can pick up your child, or you can park on the street and just leave it there and be fine and then walk around. We don't have any of those possibilities at Stevenson. So when we did this, when we thought through these processes in the summer of all the different scenarios, that was going to be the biggest issue. What happens when it's torrential downpour? We've had a couple bad ones where the umbrellas are flying away. I'm glad you guys are here because you guys are out there with me, because that does happen. But the bottom line is, on those days, with the limitations we have and not allowing parents to come into the building to retrieve their kids while their kids are nice and dry, is the parents are going to have to come out of the cars and just walk closer to the building, and then we'll release the students. And it's going to take longer. We have to know that in those types of conditions, it's not going to be a smooth process.
Yeah, so personally, I'm prepared that it's never going to be smooth, right, on a weather day. That's kind of an uncontrollable. Speaking for myself as a parent, I'm fully supportive. Parents got to get out of their cars, parents get wet, parents in umbrellas. I think the adults can cope, and I love my teachers. The teachers will cope.
They do. They do
The
a good
ones
job.
that we have the concern for are the students. And unfortunately, also with the current spacing of time between when Churchill dismisses and when Stevenson dismisses, and many of us know there are some very eager parents who show up more than an hour ahead of dismissal time to be early in wave one at Stevenson. The time it takes from kind of wave one to the final waves, those students could be standing in heavy rain for a period of 20 minutes or more. And that's the concern that the parents have. So I appreciate the safety concerns, and I definitely was one of those that vocalized those when we first heard that plan earlier in the year. But I would like to ask if there's anything else that could be considered. I appreciate you've looked at it. I trust that you've looked at it, but let's see what we can do now ahead of it, because I know it's going to be a problem come spring.
Keeping the students in the hallway. Again, if parents are all coming out of the cars, then it's easy because the teachers know as soon as the parent gets out of the car, they're turning around and calling the child's name. So that would take more time though, because now the kid is not just standing in front, they're not walking to meet their parent, but we could keep the kids in that hallway. It'll be cluttered there. Second grade will be in the hallway in the back. But until the teacher sees the child, the parents will still have to come close to the beginning, and then we can release the child. But that will add a lot of time because we do have a lot of students. They see their parent, they meet them halfway. Even in the back, there's a lot of parents for second grade that don't get out of the car, and then we wait till everybody stops, and then the kids walk to the cars, and away we go. So the time would go. We can keep the kids drier, but the time will definitely increase.
And I know there's a contractual concern around the length of time too, but I think that's
And I think we're good
It's
with that.
personally something I think is worth considering. And I can only speak for myself, I would trade a longer dismissal time if it meant keeping the kids out of the rain.
Yeah,
personally.
they're obviously our number one priority. And, keep in mind, a lot of the ideas that we have, we also, like the gymnasium, we have to bounce with our local police department. And they're the ones that raise the biggest concern.
Oh, safety is
about,
for sure a concern for parents in the
having
building.
anyone walk into the school, that's a problem. And we
Fully
totally
agree.
agree with their evaluation of the situation. And, for the powers that be, right over here to say, they wouldn't sign off on that, then that means that it's a no-go for us. So the gym would have been ideal. It's just, we have to put the safety of the students as our number one
I
concern.
fully agree, and I don't think anyone would advocate for putting security risk into the building, but I think if there's a way to consider keeping the children at least somewhat sheltered for a period of time, even if it means it extends the length of the pickup on those days that warrant it, right? I'm not saying as an everyday thing, but on a really bad inclement weather day, I think you would get sentiment and support for that.
Yeah, and the staff being out there is no longer an issue. We're in a different contract. The staff is always there. They stay till the last kid is picked up. So I don't think, even if we extended it and it took longer to pick up, that staffing would be an issue at all.
Wally, I have a question. I know we spoke in the past and we let the general public know that we applied for a recreation grant. Can any money of that grant be used? I see them often down the shore. They're basically structures that are used for, kids use in playgrounds for shade. Is that something that maybe we can incorporate into a design where on heavy rain days, the kids can kind of gather underneath them and it could be used to shield,
In
the
certain areas
weather?
of the property, we could probably see it and look at that option.
Okay, so it's something maybe we can
Yeah, we could
incorporate
probably-
into that grant, depending on if and when we get anything,
Yes.
that we can incorporate that to kind of ease, some of the concerns and, maybe have a dual purpose.
Especially in the rear of the building,
Yeah.
it might work.
Perfect. Okay, that's something to think about.
I
Thank you
appreciate
so
it. I'm sorry I
much.
was up here for a while, but I
No,
appreciate
no
it.
No.
worries. Thank you.
Anyone else? Agenda items only? Okay, with that being said, I'd like to move on. Finance?
Okay. The following finance motions are made at the recommendation of the superintendent of schools. Anything placed on this agenda, items 1 through 11, will be voted upon in one motion. I'd like to motion items 1 through 11.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll?
Yes.
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 The following contract motion is made at the recommendation of the superintendent of schools. Anything placed on this agenda, item 1, will be voted on in one motion. I so move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Yes.
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 The following buildings and ground motions is made at the recommendation of the superintendent of schools. Anything placed on this agenda, one item will be voted upon in one motion. I'd like to motion the item.
Like to have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Yes.
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 Okay, the following personnel motions are made at the recommendation of the superintendent of schools. Anything placed on this agenda, items 1 through 6, will be voted upon in one motion. I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Yes.
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 Okay, on to curriculum. The following curriculum program motions are made at the recommendation of the superintendent of schools. Anything placed on this agenda, items 1 through 3, will be voted upon in one motion. I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have a roll call?
Yes.
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 Policy, the following policy motion is made at the recommendation of the superintendent of schools. Anything placed on this agenda, item 1, will be voted upon in one motion. I so move.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Yes.
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 Yes. I'd like to open the floor to public comments for non-agenda items. Seeing no one, I'd like to close it. Our next meeting, be it resolved that the next meeting will be held in person on April 10th, 2025. Public work session beginning at 6 p.m., followed by executive session with public session resuming at approximately 7:30 p.m. at the Fairfield Municipal Building. Motion for adjournment?
Motion?
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call?
Aye.
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 Thank you all for coming out. We hope you have a great night.